Life is something that we all value, especially when it comes to our own. However, when it comes to the lives of others, things get more complicated. There isn't always an obvious answer to what life is or if it should be taken. We talked to a few MV&U professors about the value of life at its beginning and at its end. Abortion has always been a hot topic when it comes to the value of life at its beginning.
Why I would be more pro-life? First of all, I'd say it's a hard issue. I don't like the approach that kind of says it's just a slam dunk, because even if you are someone who sees it as immoral to have abortions, there's still the question of what the government should and should not regulate. And, even if you disapprove of something, should the government be able to say, well, you don't even have the option, right? So I would first say that I don't say that kind of reflexively on some moral basis, and because I don't like it, it shouldn't happen. But my thought on it is that even though there are some circumstances where it would be really difficult to say to someone, you don't have a choice legally, you have to have this child, it is a life, and that's what it comes down to for me.
I don't think the issue of abortion is black and white, and so I don't think I can say pro-life or pro-choice. I will tell you this, I am for women, I am for babies, I am for families. So wherever you want to place that, I would say I have the value of sanctity of life is important to me. I wish that abortion was not something that was an option, but yet I've worked with people and seen people. I've been a person who's had to try to make that decision, and it's not black and white.
So I'm definitely pro-life. I have always been pro-life, but I think my views on it have even solidified over time. Ironically, in college, I had an ethics course, and the topic that I spoke on was abortion. And at that time, I was pro-life, but I definitely saw some of the exceptions where in cases of rape, like I could relate to where maybe a woman would want to have an abortion in that case. And the more I thought about it, I thought I don't really think that you can have exceptions to your beliefs. So since that time, I've really formulated my ideas even more in my beliefs, and I am now strongly pro-life in all exceptions.
Constitutionally, we're guaranteed in the 5th and the 14th Amendment a right to life, liberty, and property that can't be taken away without due process of law. Certainly there's no due process where an individual as a child in the womb would be allowed to stand up for him or herself. And so to deprive that person, I think, is against constitutional rights as well. Even though the complication there is that you get citizenship rights when you're born into the country, when you're born on that territory, but even so, I still think for a child being carried within the United States borders, they'd be protected by that. That's my personal feeling on how it should operate.
It's even hit home even more. I have an adopted son, and his birth mother didn't find out that she was pregnant until she was at 6 months, and at that time she indicated that it was too late to have an abortion. And I sit here and think about what would have happened had she found out earlier and possibly terminated her pregnancy.
Can we consider a person to be unfit to live anymore? Is there a point where it would be better for them to die? Can we morally justify the execution of a person because of something they have done in their past? These are a few of the questions that arise when talking about euthanasia.
I believe that all life is sacred, and I don't think that's particular to Christians necessarily. There are many cultures around the world that believe life is sacred, but I think the line is drawn in terms of, because even in those cultures that believe life is sacred, there's this notion of some lives are more sacred than others. But I think where kind of my Christian faith informs my belief is that it's not some lives, but all life is sacred. And that's where, my decision, in terms of my ethical belief or practice hinges on that notion.
29-year-old woman, she just got married a couple years ago, found out in January that she has a brain tumor, and it's sped up. She originally was given a year. That got down to, I think, 4 months at some point. And she has been carrying around for some time a pill or medicine or something along those lines, she was able to get by living in Oregon. She was living in California. She moved to Oregon in order to be able to, have physician-assisted suicide there where it's legal, right? And she had planned her death date for November 1st. Her husband's birthday is October 30th, so she wanted to wait until after his birthday. What a horrible thing to think about. I mean, I'm not even saying that in condemning her. I'm just saying the whole situation is just so sad. All those components of it, right?
So I think in some cases, passive euthanasia, when it's voluntary, even sometimes I suppose if a person is near death and doesn't have the capacity to even communicate, allowing the person to die is the right thing to do.
I do not believe that euthanasia should be used, mainly because I don't know what dying peacefully even means. I mean, does anyone ever die peacefully?
I think to answer that question, I should probably first tell you about my views on capital punishment. If we're going to have capital punishment, I suppose euthanasia would be one of the more humane ways to kill someone, but I don't believe in capital punishment. So I think that's the bigger issue there.
So I think the first thing is we're assuming that we're okay with capital punishment, and I'm going on that premise that the death penalty is okay. And I personally support capital punishment. I think in the instances where you're going to utilize the death penalty, I think euthanasia is the only appropriate way to do that.
Is it morally justifiable to support ending life early in the name of potentially saving the lives of others down the road? This is one of the tough questions we encounter with stem cell research.
Like the idea of using aborted fetuses, I think there are plenty of other ways that we can harvest stem cells. In fact, one of the best ways is umbilical cords. And so here you have live births and women would donate their umbilical cords to science. I think that would be a much better way to do stem cell research. I think stem cell research is valuable. I think it should be continued. But it really, I don't know, just the idea of using aborted fetuses, I find offensive.
We can glean stem cells in other ways today. Scientific research has progressed to the point where, an aborted fetus is not necessary anymore for stem cells to be harvested, to be used in research.
I think this is one where my head and my heart tell me different things. Being a scientist, I see the value of using stem cells, and there's a lot of research out there. Another news story that just broke yesterday was Harvard scientists think that they found the cure for type 1 diabetes, which they have been looking at for a very, very long time. And they think they found that by utilizing stem cells that can produce insulin and help these children that suffer from type 1 diabetes. So on that hand, the emotional side of me says that that's great, and there's the potential for cures out there using stem cells. However, coming back again to my underlying principle that there is the sanctity of human life, and human life begins at conception, I think it is actually morally wrong to use embryonic stem cells for research.
Regardless of your perspective on these issues, life is something that we all value.